morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, I kind of need to tell you about Pikachu VMAX, and how Pikachu VMAX is starting to clean up over in Japan. Now, yes, of course, there are a couple of cards that Japan still has that we don't have. And yes, of course, we will talk about that as we go. But Pikachu VMAX is proving to be a very, very nice card indeed. A very, very nice deck indeed. So let's have a gander, shall we? Now, it is, of course, worth pointing out that there are a couple of different Pikachu V we've got at the moment. The one that came out in Astonishing Volt Tackle, and the one that came out in Japan in one of the V decks. And the majority seem to be going for the one from the V decks. Now, this is one that we're getting in tins, and essentially we're talking 2 lightning energy, 30 damage for each of your bench Pokemon. So if you've got a full bench, 2 energy, 150, it's a decent low energy attack, especially against smaller Pokemon. The one that came out in Astonishing Volt Tackle is still seeing some play, though less so. I've got 3 lists to show you, I'll show you them all at the end. And that's the one that for free energy does 200 damage, which is really good for a 2-prize Pokemon, though you do have to discard all energy from this Pokemon. Honestly, in the early game, the better reason to play it is single energy, search your deck for 2 lightning energy and attach to this Pokemon, though you do then have the issue of you've attached to Pikachu and then left Pikachu in the active to take a hit. But the main attacker of the deck is very much Pikachu VMAX. Pikachu VMAX has got the rather phenomenal G-Max Volt Tackle attack, free energy, 120 damage, but if you wish, you may discard all energy attached to this Pokemon and do 270 instead. Bearing in mind 270 is the same amount of damage that Eternatus VMAX does, and that is working out rather nicely indeed right now. So it is something to very much bear in mind. And what you've got is giant HP, 270 damage, and we've got ways of getting the energy on. Now, in terms of backup attackers before we get to the other energy, really the backup attacker we're looking at here is Vikavolt. And we do see the Vikavolt is coming in quite nicely here. In the free list I'm going to show you in this video, all of them did play Vikavolt. It's got the attack for 2 energy that will lock your opponent out of trainer or item cards the next turn, and that is a really, really powerful thing. Being able to item lock your opponent is pretty gosh darned awesome, so it's probably not terribly surprising that we're seeing that being played. It's a really, really good backup attacker. And it's like we've seen in a bunch of other lightning decks. You can either go hard with the damage on Pikachu, or you can start going for item lock with Vikavolt. Essentially, they're starting to run a bit like Pikachu and Zekrom decks, but we've gotten rid of Pikachu and Zekrom and just chucked in the CHONKY Pikachu boy. And it seems to be working okay. And I should mention that one of the lists here does play Tapu Koko V. Single energy, 20 damage, draw 2 cards. Free energy, 200 damage, and you've got free retreat. So it's a nice little backup attacker, especially one that only gives up 2 prizes, though not seen in all of the decks. Now, I've told you we've got ways of getting the energy, and we do. One of them, of course, is Tapu Koko Prism Star. That is the one whereby you lost zone it from the bench, and then you get to attach 2 lightning energy, 1 to each of 2 bench Pokemon from the discard, which is pretty gosh darned good. And honestly, we are seeing love for Electrode. 2 of the 3 lists I'm going to show you here do play Electrode, and honestly, I think the 3rd one probably should. Although they've got other tricks, we'll get there. The Electrode, that's a new one that came out in Astonishing Volt Tackle in Japan. It's going to be in Vivid Voltage over here. And essentially, you KO it, but then you get to search your deck for 2 lightning energy and attach them to your Pokemon in any way that you like. It is kind of awesome. And it's just going to get your energy out on the field so much more easily. That's kind of cool. The one that doesn't play Electro does tend to play Turbo Patch, and we're going slightly out of order, but it kind of needs to be mentioned here. That's the item card whereby you flip a coin, and if heads, you get to attach an energy, basic energy, from your discard to a basic non-GX Pokemon. Clearly, if you can find the room, that's going to work very nicely in this deck. And those really are the cards that we see coming around in all of the decks. Now, we do see a bunch of consistency Pokemon that we obviously swap a little bit between decks. Generally, we tend to see Dedenne here as your 2-prize Pokemon to bench and draw extra cards. Discard your hand, draw 6 cards. But we also see Eldegoss coming in here. When you bench it, you get to put a supporter card from your discard pile into your hand. And we actually see one of the lists playing that Silvally GX from Cosmic Eclipse that once during your turn, lets you draw until you've got 5 cards in your hand. Which is, that's pretty good in terms of extra energy acceleration. Now, in terms of other Pokemon that are just kind of popping up in one or two of the decks, we do see the Zapdos. Now, this is the one that I said I was a big fan of. It's for free energy, and you do have to discard them all, but then you do 160 to one of your opponent's Pokemon GX or V. So, clearly, that's a lot of damage to get on the board really nicely, so shouldn't be terribly surprised that that one ends up seeing a little bit of play here. We do see one of the lists playing the other Zapdos, the one from Team Up that just does 80 damage if you became active this turn, which is pretty gosh darned cool. We do see a couple of the decks playing Jirachi, which I should mention here, though do remember that the Japanese lists haven't quite gone rotation yet, so they do still have a skateboard. I've been playing around with Jirachi decks post-rotation without a skateboard, and it's working quite alright for me, but do remember that we currently are playing without a skateboard and Japan aren't, so that is something that you need to bear in mind. And then we see the odd things popping up like Mew to protect your bench and Marshadow to act as a little bit of Stadium Hate to discard your opponent's stadium, which is kind of fun. But generally speaking here, your key points are your Pikachu VMAX, and then you've basically got your Vikavolt and your Tapu Koko. And Dedenne. Those are the cards that really are popping up in all of the lists, and then we flick around a little bit. I should mention one of the lists does play Electro GX. That is the one where you blow it up, you give up 2 prizes, and then you get to attach 5 energy from your discard. I'm honestly not a fan of this, and even if it hadn't rotated, I would not want to play it. I don't think it's particularly good, and you're giving up 2 prizes, so I mention it, but you've been warned. Now, in terms of energy, obviously Lightning Energy is where we're going, partly because that's what you're paying, but also Tapu Koko Electro, they really need this. Though it is, of course, worth mentioning that the decks do play Speed Lightning Energy, because it's a Lightning Energy, and when you attach it to a Lightning Pokemon, you draw 2 cards. Clearly, that's giving you a bit of advantage when it comes to speed. Now, yes, obviously we need to mention as we look at trainer cards that Electro Power and Thunder Mountain have rotated out. Electro Power lets your attacks do an extra 30 damage, and Thunder Mountain reduces your attack cost by 1. Well, lightning energy, but only to your lightning Pokemon. Is this going to kill this deck? I don't think it is, frankly. I don't think it's a terrible thing. Now, don't get me wrong, we'd rather have the cards, but Eternatus just has Galarian Zigzagoon, which struggles to get up to an extra 30 damage, let alone 60 or 90. And they're hitting the same base damage you are most of the time. They've got to have a full bench, you've got to discard all your energy, but same deal. They actually need a bench of 8 Pokemon, which I'd argue is a lot of the time more difficult, though they do have the extra bench space to play with. And Thunder Mountain, it's 1 extra energy essentially at one point during the game, and again, I'm not trying to say it's not a good card, but I'm not ready to say that losing those cards is going to completely and utterly destroy the deck, because I don't think it will. And honestly, outside of that, what we tend to see here is fairly standard. Now, we do see one of the decks at least playing Rose, and that is something I would very much recommend here. That's a supporter card that lets you discard your entire hand, but then attach 2 energy from your discard to one of your VMAX Pokemon, clearly good for Pikachu. The list that plays Silvally plays it, which is probably something we should have seen coming. It is slightly odd to me that we don't see every deck playing it, or at least playing Silvally if they're playing it. Silvally and Rose seems like a really strong combination. It's one that I would very much recommend. And then there is that list that's playing Turbo Patch, which again is something that I'd be kind of on board with. And I suppose while we're here, I didn't mention one of the lists plays a single capture energy. Helps you get your basics out, but it's far, far from guaranteed and necessary here. And then it really is fairly standard. You've got your quick ball to go ahead and get your basics, which is something we really need. You've got either Evolution Incense or Pokemon Communication to go ahead and get your Evolution Pokemon. Essentially, your Pikachu VMAX, your Electrode, things of that nature. We see a little bit of Viridian Forest to search out your energy in some of them, which is kind of cool. We see things like Professor's Research and Marnie as your supporters of choice. Professor's Research, discard your hand, draw 7. Marnie, both players shuffle the hand, put it on the bottom of the deck, you get 5, your opponent gets 4. We see Reset Stamp to slow your opponent down towards the end of the game, gives them a new hand equal to their remaining prizes. We see Boss's Orders to drag Pokemon up from the bench so you can try and KO the right Pokemon at the right time. Tool Scrapper, because there are too many annoying tools right now and most decks should be playing one copy of it. And we see a bunch of copies of Switch, especially if you're trying to rely on being able to either use Pikachu or Vikavolt. Being able to switch between them and have the right one active at the right time is pretty important. I should give a quick shout out to Volkner here, which has also rotated. Gives you an item card and a basic energy. But if we look at the deck list, this is not something which is a guaranteed 4 of in every deck. So I really don't think it's a big loss at all, honestly. I think we'll be alright. If we have a look at the list here is list number 1. You can see that this list does play Electro GX. You've got a couple of Vikavolt there. You've got your Jirachi. And then, honestly, it's kind of fairly standard from there. List number 2, you've got a 2-2 Pikachu VMAX line and then your Vikavolt. So, again, we are going paired here. But this is a list that plays the Zapdos from Team Up. And we got a 1-1 Electrode line and a 1-1 Silvally line. So, really playing around with the tricks. Also, the only one playing Capture Energy. And then the third list here goes heavier on the Pikachu. You've got a 4-3 line. You've also got 2 Vikavolt, and this is the one list playing Tapu Koko V, which is kind of cool. And then you've got the new Zapdos in this list as well. And this is a list that doesn't play Electrode, but does play Turbo Patch. I know that a bunch of people are going to turn around and dismiss Pikachu VMAX going, oh, well, it's losing those 2 cards. And maybe that's true. But honestly, I do think there is an awful lot of potential here. So, it's something I think we need to start taking pretty gosh darn seriously. And now you've got 3 deck lists you can use to start building, so hopefully that'll give you some ideas. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to hear from you guys. I want to know how good you think Pikachu VMAX is, and I want to know if it's something you think is going to go to the top of the metagame. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.